Are you tired, frustrated, and feel stuck? Are you a high-performing business professional, entrepreneur, and you are not getting the results you desire, or you hit a ceiling? Have you been around the block and tried many modalities? You are in the right place. The answer, my friend, is in the little-known brain-soul connection. Welcome to the Brain-Soul Success Show, where we learn, explore, and create your dream life. Your host, Louise Swartswalter, created a 5-part mind-body-soul methodology that clears the subconscious blocks to success. You are a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. The seed of all you need is already within you. From engaging transformational interviews, brain-soul success stories, and secrets shared by health, wellness, and spiritual experts, you will reconnect, revitalize, and transform your powerful life. It's time for you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Brain Soul Success Show. And again, you're in for another amazing treat. We have Amanda Gates with us today, and Amanda is an interior designer, professionally trained interior designer, and an advanced Feng Shui practitioner. She's a podcaster and author. She's an award-winning writer. She's got a great new book out. I can't wait for you to hear more about that. You know, she's married interior design and Feng Shui over the last 20 years. So she has her own beautiful process that she helps clients with. And you'll be surprised because it's not just what you think of when you think of Feng Shui. So actually, can you guys, before we go further, what's the definition of Feng Shui for people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, I always tell, first and foremost, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I always tell people that I think the easiest, simplest way to describe it is it just increases flow and abundance in all area of your life, all areas. And I think a lot of times people will hear the word abundance and they immediately think wealth. And yes, it can be that, but it's all areas. It's the areas that people love. It's our partnerships, it's our health, it's our career, it's our family connections, it's money, it's our connection to the divine. It's literally all the things that are really important to us. And Feng Shui is a medium that it's a toolbox essentially that allows you to unkink energy that is preventing good flow in those areas, and just allows good energy, positivity to flow in those areas of your life.
Oh, I love that. And, and I have dabbled in that a little bit myself. I've used some feng shui books and changed some things in my house and in my living environment. I'd have clients come into my office and they're like, you know what, you got to move those shelves around. You need to do this and this and this, so I know that it's about that, but I also know that you're really talking about feng shui for the soul. That's the name of your book, how to achieve more om from your home. Love it. Absolutely love it. So, wow, I can't wait to hear more about this. So, I love how you blended everything that you do. How did you even get into even interior design or loving space, spaces in the first place? Tell us your
Yeah,
journey.
it's a crazy story. So I was pre-med, I got accepted to med school. I'm probably the only practitioner that has. I've got a degree in biology with a minor in microbiology.
Okay.
um, yeah, so I got accepted to med school, was on my way to med school. My soon-to-be husband and I, we had purchased this really not so great house, but in a fabulous neighborhood. We got a bargain of a deal on this house, and we had stars in our eyes. We were
Nice.
so excited. We were young and dumb. It's a great place to be. And we were just blissfully blind to all the woes that were going on in this house. And this was in California. This was about 25 years ago. And there was a loophole in the system to where if you had occupants in the home, the bank couldn't take it away. So the previous homeowner had put homeless people in this house. So they were
Oh,
urinating on the floors. They were taking sledgehammers to the wall. They cut a ceiling or a hole in the ceiling, and they just did all these crazy things. And I started having these very weird experiences in the house.
Mm.
Um, and I started experiencing this thing where I couldn't catch my breath and I would go into hysteria. And I later found out it was called a panic attack. And I was like, my doctor kept saying, "Oh, well, it's stress related." And I'm like, I'm not stressed.
Mhm.
And then I started getting fever blisters in the middle of my mouth, which I had never had fever blisters. Well, I went down to a Borders bookstore. Remember those? Went down to a
Yes.
Borders bookstore and I'm looking at all these decorating books and I'm like, if I can just make the house more pretty. Like we were remodeling it at the time and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
okay, it needs more chandeliers and better paint and we'll literally make it prettier and all this nonsense will stop. Like that I didn't know what was happening and
Mhm.
this woman, she just radiated light. She had this blonde, fluffy hair. She just radiated light. She came over to me and she's like, "Darling, you don't need those books. You need that book." Pointed to a feng shui book, and I didn't even know how to pronounce it. I was like, F who, and she just kind of giggled and she spun around and she was like, "Ooh, honey, the energy in that house, you gotta get on that right away." And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
So
Wow. Mhm.
I picked up one of these F word books, and the first where I opened it was talking about the importance of the front door. And I just
Mhm.
fell to my knees in this bookstore, and it was talking about how literally everything in your life will come to a halt if you're not utilizing your front door and you're not it's basically like having your mouth wired shut. And that's why I
Mhm.
was getting the fever blisters. I had no
Interesting.
idea. And it
Mhm.
was why I was getting the panic attacks because my house couldn't breathe. So she was speaking to me in the only language that she knew how, and it was through energy.
Sure.
And so I was thankful that I had, been going through the process of med school training. Hadn't gone there yet, but I, had been going to school for this. And so I had a very black and white approach to life at that point. And it's like, okay, let's do the research, let's do the lab results, let's like, so it allowed me to come into it with analytics and reason, and now I've thrown all that out the window, but at that time it helped me make sense of it all. And then I
Mhm.
realized, wow, there's something very mystical about this and I need to learn more. And so I ditched med school and I was like, I've got to become a real estate agent or a designer. I need to get in houses. So I went to design school.
Oh, I love how you got to design school. It's so funny. A lot of people do start pre-med and then they shift, you know?
Well,
It is
what's funny is when I told
interesting.
my mom, she was like, "Oh, thank God." She's like, "You've always been a weird creative child. You are not built for medicine."
Oh my gosh, so that's great. You had your mom's blessing at that time. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's really beautiful. So you fixed up the house, right? You feng shuied the house. Did you notice a difference then after you
Oh,
did
yeah.
that? Okay.
It was, wow. It was like night and day. I've never had a fever blister ever since, and, it's a virus, so technically you should get it again. Never had a fever blister. I've never had a panic attack again. But yeah, I created this symbiotic relationship with my home that I didn't even know
Mhm,
existed. Like,
mhm.
back then I would have thought like, "Oh, it's a house, it's a roof over your head, it's a place you sleep at night." And now I'm like, "Oh God, no, 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 no." Like it's so much more than that. And so I developed this relationship with a place called home and I realized the importance of it. And throughout the book, I talk about how each home that I go to and each home that I've lived in, how I develop relationships with them. And each one of them, I have gleaned valuable information about this thing called feng shui, and literally
Mhm.
my life's work is in this book, and I share each home that I've lived in and what I took from that experience. And like uh one of my houses from 10 years ago 12 years ago is where I got the top 5 disruptors, which is my proprietary system, but that house taught me that. So each one kind of gifts me a little bit further in, I call it the mountain of enlightenment. I'm going further and further up the mountain of enlightenment, and each home gives me a little bit bigger view and a little bit bigger view.
I love that you're doing it through home. I do similar work, only I'm not doing it through home. It's through the self, you know. It's through the brain. It's through the brain and the soul, you know. So I think about those places in our life where we've had some kind of spiritual awakening. And it sounds like that's what happened to you in that very first house. And
Yeah.
you weren't doing your purpose and you finally found your purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
haphazardly, I kind of fell
Yeah.
into it, but yeah, I mean, it's I think what's really important to say as people watch this or listen to this is that um, it, it's kind of like success. It's not a straight line. It's, you know,
Right.
you're kind of all over the place. And I've learned that it is a symbiotic relationship with your home, but it starts with you first. And
Yeah.
so that's what the
Mhm.
book is all about, is your personal chi and your personal energy. And so to me, that's the biggest mistake that most people make is they attack their home, quote unquote, doing feng shui. And you can't do that. You've got to work on yourself first. Otherwise, you're
Absolutely.
bringing to your environment that chaotic. I always refer to pig pen, you know, with the craziness going on. And if you've got pigpen tornado going around you and then you attack your home, you're just driving that energy into your environment. You've got to really work
Absolutely.
on your personal chi. You've got to have a strong sense of self. You've got to come to it to really create that relationship and create the finer, higher tuned energies, the less dense, you know, worldly energies.
Yes, and, you know, I know we'll dive in and talk about how to do that. I've always saw that my clients that their body was their home. That they would, just like you had the fever blisters, you know, they would manifest things in their physical bodies or in their energy field that were not aligned if they weren't in relationship with themselves first. And it could also reflect in their physical body or in their home, you know.
Mhm.
So leaks, you know, pipes that leak, you know, they say that that's money running out, so fix those pipes. So when you have different things happening, same thing with your car, right?
And
When
I'm
you got
glad that you brought that up because your home is a direct reflection of you.
Mhm.
So if you are going through a traumatic experience, your home, if you're ignoring her, is going to act out. So
Mhm.
uh, leaks are, it also is emotions. A lot of times it's more emotional than it is money, but it can relate to money.
Mhm.
If you're having roof issues or something, that means that you can have issues with thinking. It could be issues with back, like you're holding on to energy. So a lot of times we're like, we're holding on to things. And so those are direct reflections in your house. If those things are breaking, you need to take a step back and go, okay, where am I holding that energy in myself?
Right, good questioning. Yes, absolutely. We do want to be asking those questions. I have a really weird question for you. So this spring, I had flying ants in my skylights, like inside. Now I know I had to fix them and they are fixed now, you know, so because the house is gosh, 30 years old. So, and they weren't leaking, but the very top of them, the caulking probably was off and they were coming in, but they were flying ants and they would not go away. And I do all kinds of energy work. What do you think, just out of curiosity, what do you think that was?
Yeah, so you got to be really careful with skylights. Skylights can be vision. And so it could
Okay.
be lack of clarity, not seeing something clearly.
Okay.
Or it could be that there's something festering or pesting, you know, like we look at those as pests, right? So what's
Uh-huh.
going on in your life that's pestering you or that you're really not paying attention to? So when you have things like that, like
Mhm.
a lot of times, I think the normal person will have that experience and be, well, damn it, this sucks and like stupid things and get, but like you and I, we're energy people. So we're going to take a step
Mhm.
back and go, huh, what does this mean?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you gotta kind of pay attention to what's going on in your life. And sometimes it's subconscious stuff that you might not know about that's, you know,
Mhm,
bubbling to the surface. So I
mhm,
always encourage people to write it down. Like
mhm.
nature speaks to me. I'm very intuitive, empathic, but nature is my biggest teacher. Like, she's constantly speaking to me, and she's constantly sending me omens and messages and stuff. And it's up to me to interpret it. So a lot of times I will write it down, and I will just like try to flesh it out. And as I
Mhm.
work on it and flesh it out, and I work on it and I meditate on it, I'll just suddenly get the idea, and I'll be like, ah, that's what it is.
Yes, and writing is such a great tool, writing things down. I do a process, Amanda, called soul tie boxes. And so I did a soul tie box on the skylights, and it finally went away. And what I do is I put the goal or intention in a box, and I'm looking for the people or situations that have pulled us away from that goal. And it's an intuitive process. I'm a medical intuitive, and I figure out those subconscious blocks or those spells or whatever that was in the field, and then we clear it.
Yeah.
And then when you
Well, you
clear
can have
it,
conversations with them too. Like,
yeah.
um,
Oh, that's a good idea.
I had a girlfriend. I've
Mm,
done this twice just in the last couple of years. I had a girlfriend who she moved here from New York, and her apartment kept getting roaches, and she was
mhm.
getting so upset. And I was like, you need to have a conversation with those roaches. And she's like, Amanda, I'm not gonna have. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. So I literally I did a ceremony, and I had a conversation with the roaches, and I was like, hey, you need to be respectful of boundaries, and this is not your home, and it may have been your home, but it's not your home anymore. And so I had a conversation with them, and like 2 months later, I'm like, hey, how's the roach problem? She goes, hey, that's interesting. I haven't had a roach in a while. And I'm like, yeah, because I had a conversation with him. And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah." So, I mean, that's another, neat thing that you
Yeah.
can do, because we're all one. It's all the same
Yes.
energy. So just have a conversation. I had a conversation with a snake years ago, that kept coming up on a friend's porch. And I said, "Dude, you can't come up on the porch. You can be out in the yard, but they've got a 3-year-old.
Mhm.
You need to." And so I made a bargain with them. I said, "Look here, you can stay out in the yard, you can do whatever you want, but if you come anywhere near the porch or near the house, the homeowner's allowed to kill you or any of your kingdom." Like,
Every kingdom, that's great.
that's
Yeah.
that's the rule. And so they didn't have
Mhm.
any snakes. And then maybe about 3 years later, one came in, and so Raymond killed it. And I went in and I had a conversation with the snakes again, and I'm like, "Look, we had an agreement." And he
Mhm.
the essence of the snake came in. He goes, "Yeah, he was a young dumb one." like like he was a teenager. He wasn't listening.
He wasn't listening. Oh, that's fun. Oh, that's really funny. But yeah,
Like,
that's a great suggestion. Because everything is energy, have a conversation, in the same way we're supposed to have conversations with ourselves,
in our
right?
home,
So,
our
in
environment,
our home and our environment, because we are one, definitely.
all energy. At the end of the day, everything is energy. It's all
Mm-hmm,
us. We're just globs of energy, and everything
mm-hmm,
around us is globs of energy. Um, you know, we are perceiving it as matter, but matter doesn't exist. It's not real.
mm-hmm.
So it's literally the opportunity to become a part of that glob of energy, and its essence. And whether you want to have a conversation with it, whether you want to do a ceremony, whatever you're comfortable with. You can't go into something like this with doubt and be like, oh my gosh, Louise and Amanda are crazy, but I'm going to try this. So go into it with curiosity and creativity, and have fun with it. That's really the approach that you want to have on it, and see what happens. Like, really listen to the information that comes through. It's fun.
Yes, it's fun. I love that. I love that you have that energy about it. Tell us about your approach. So I know you have an approach that's different that you talk about in the book. And like you said, it's working on yourself first. And so you had a step-by-step kind of process or a five-step thing, I think you
Yeah.
mentioned. Tell us
It,
about that. Yeah.
so really what my goal is with everyone that I work with is our personal chi. You've got to get yourself right. You can't be a tornado and attack your space. And so, um, the other thing that I really focus on is once you've gotten your personal chi in order, and that's not difficult. It's simple everyday things. It's unplugging from the busy bubble, and whether that's meditating, writing, getting out in nature, spending time with your kids, whatever makes you happy. Oh my gosh, what a concept, right? Doing things that bring us joy.
Give you joy. Yes.
Um, and getting into that place of joy. And so once you get into a place of an attitude of gratitude and heartfelt joy, and a lot of us don't allow ourselves to get to that place. For God forbid we feel good about something. We default to negativity as a society. But once you get to that place, now you're in a place where you can approach your feng shui and really start having fun with it, and paying attention to the language of home and how she's constantly speaking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my clients, like, they get panic stricken, like, oh God, it's so intimidating. It's so hard. I've done it before. It doesn't work. And it's like, all right, let's get rid of that thought pattern. And so I created the top 5 disruptors. Um,
Okay.
a girlfriend of mine many years ago, she was buying a house. Her name was Sarah. And she was like, okay, I need like a list of something. Like, what do I look for in buying a house? And I gave her this big, long list. And she's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Like, I don't have time to look at all this. And so it took me some time, but I came up with the 5. So the first one is to just look at the overall shape. What is the shape of your home? What's going on? Pay attention, because there's things like sacred geometry and the Fibonacci circle, and there's sacredness to shape and numbers, math. You can look at it at sacred sites, churches. They used to build with these methods because the human eye is even without realizing it, with people who don't know about sacred geometry, they respond to things, and they'll say, oh, that's beautiful, or oh, that feels amazing, and it's
Mhm.
sacred geometry. So we want to pay attention to shape. If you've got a nice box of a house, you live in a box, a rectangle, something like that, that's great. But if you have a U or a T or an L, which is very common in the West, you want to be mindful of that, because energy does not flow very well in those shapes. And so in the book, I talk about, okay, you've got these shapes. Don't panic. This is what we need to do.
Mhm.
The number 2 thing is your front door. Front door is a big deal. It's how I got into feng shui. It's the whole reason
Mhm.
I dropped out of med school and went into feng shui. But it's the mouth of chi. It's literally, if you think of our own mouths, it's how we nourish ourselves, it's how we take care of ourselves. And so if we don't use our front door, we don't care for the front door, we're not nourishing our souls, we're not nourishing our worlds. So
Mhm.
very simple. Make sure your light bulbs work, make sure the door is clean, make sure it's operational. I mean, bonehead stuff, but a lot of people just ignore it because they're so busy, they don't think of these.
Sure. Yeah, it makes
Um,
sense. Totally makes sense. Absolutely.
100%.
Mhm.
The third one is command. Traditionally, if you read an article or pick up a book or do a workshop or something, command is traditionally going to be, I can see the door, bed, desk, or stove. We're going to focus on those 3 things. And yes,
Mhm.
that's important, but I take it a leap further and I say, when we're talking about command, it all comes back to your personal chi. You have to be able to be an empowered person. You need to be able to be commanded in your life, and you need to be empowered, and you need to not feel powerless. And as women, a lot
Mhm.
of times we can. We've got a lot of nonsense looping up in our brains that we don't even realize, that we've been conditioned to think, and that we've got on repeat, that we don't even realize is there. So
Mhm.
we need to really come from an empowered state, because when we're talking about command and being able to see our door, if a space is in command, it might not feel comfortable to you if you're not feeling empowered. If you don't have command over your energy, it's not going to be something that's important to you. So when it comes to command, we need to work on ourselves first. We need to get our energy first. That's our personal chi. And we need to really
Mhm.
focus on getting rid of reason and logic and all that left brain bullshit. And we need to focus on, how do you feel?
Of
We need to
course.
focus on our heart. How do we
Mhm.
feel?
Mhm.
So that's how we're going to get ourselves back into command. Um, the third,
That's
fourth.
the piece that I teach. So the command piece, I don't do the first piece, second piece like you do with the feng shui. But as an energy worker, and as a naturopath and biofeedback therapist, I'm really using the brain and the soul and the energy field and it's the whole thing. It's the language of the soul is the emotional body.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're 99.9% space. So I teach people how to clear the emotions that are stuck in the spaces of the brain, the spaces of the energy field, the fact that we're, I think of us as going out to the stars, like our energy field is huge.
We
It goes
are
out to the
stars.
stars. It goes out to the sun. I mean, we're huge. We're just really huge. We're mostly space. And so I love that you have that as your step there, and you're talking about personal chi and how important it is in terms of feng shui. That's
Well,
awesome.
when we're
Yeah.
talking about the brain, the problem is that I would say 99% of culture, it may be improving a little bit, but a lot of us are in beta. We're just so frenetic, and our brain
Yes.
waves are moving at such a high rate of speed that we're not really manifesting anything. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's kind of like Charlie Brown teachers, wah, 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 like that's,
It's all the negativity in the field, those voices, especially for empaths, so I teach people how to sort of clear the subconscious patterns, the ancestral blocks, and those voices, like you said, that wah, 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 that's not your truth. That's not 100% your soul's truth.
yeah.
Right. So we want to get
So
people back to that, like you said, and have that command. I love that.
yeah, you really need
Yeah.
to take command of your own energy you know, kind of like how you know, I remember Shania Twain in the 90s and what I think there's now a new documentary on Netflix about her, but like I remember seeing her as a girl. I was still late teens, early 20s when Shania Twain was really making it big in the 90s, and she was so empowered as a woman, and it was so powerful to see her own space, to take up space and
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
say things like, let's go girls, like with so much power and commanding that. And I loved that. And so it's really about, we are very incoherent. We've got these left brains that are on hyperdrive, and we've really shut down our right brains. And so we want to be in coherence where our heart and our brains are working
Mhm.
cohesively together. And our subtle energy system is healthy, which is our chi. We've got this emotional body, and like I cannot see auras, but I have friends that can see them. And like I always talk about collapsed chi. If you're not healthy, like your chi is collapsed on you, and
Mhm.
like you'll feel depression, you'll feel down, you'll feel fatigued and tired. That's collapsed chi. And so we want to fluff that chi and that energy body that's around you. And that's what's going to help you take up space and to like put your stake in the ground. Like, damn it, I belong here. I'm bringing gifts to the world, and it would be less than without me. And to have the, like you're talking about with your truth, really
Mhm.
owning that and feeling comfortable to say that, you know?
Yes. Yes. Love that. Love that, Amanda. Yeah.
So the fourth one is bathrooms. Bathrooms was really important for me to include, just because if you pick up a book, I mean, I've seen everything, like people saying that they're going to remodel their house and put them outside, or they're called the devil's room, and like all this
Oh
crazy
no.
stuff. Like, we can't be thinking like that. And in some cultures, and I write about this in the book, like ablutions, I think is how you pronounce it. The Buddhists, there's all these cultures that have really used bathrooms and bathing, watering holes, so to speak, to cleanse the body, but ultimately it was to help cleanse the mind, because all
Mm.
suffering starts with the mind. It's,
That so makes sense.
right.
I crave taking a bath sometimes when I have to clear my mind. Like I go do my meditations and my processes in the bathtub, and maybe it's the water, I don't know. But it does feel like it does that does
And
work on the mind. Or taking a
yeah.
shower, I just wash all the stuff off
Mhm.
in the day.
'Cause you're getting it out of your energy system. And in
Yeah.
feng
Yeah.
shui, like my mentor, my teacher always taught, like after we would go do an extremely heavy consultation, to come home and take within 6 hours, take a bath with orange peels, because it cleanses your energy system.
Nice.
So there's a lot of benefit to bathrooms. The biggest issue is that most bathrooms have 3 to 5 drains, so chi goes down the drain, and so it can be a pull it can drain you. And so we don't want to go in with fear. We want to look at it and say, okay, how can we utilize this watering hole and give it a benefit to where it's getting rid of the suffering of our mind. It's feeding our souls. Our bathrooms are so intimate. They see us at our most intimate, versions of ourselves. It's our most vulnerable versions of ourselves. And so, how do we make that a benefit to ourselves so that we can really utilize it as a portal and come out of it, better than when we went in, and making it a sacred space as opposed to it's the devil's room.
Oh, absolutely. Uh,
Right. And then
I
the last one is a concept called knife edges. Knife edges are any sharp point. A lot of times they're wall corners.
mhm.
Uh, really, really important to pay attention to. I did a lot of research on this chapter. The mystics and the ancients used to say that sharp objects had sharp shooting chi. They could see it. And so
Okay.
there's been studies that have been done that anything with sharp corners, sharp edges actually has a different frequency. And so our chi is disrupted by that frequency. So we really want to pay attention to that in areas that we spend a lot of time, because we'll be fidgety, we can't focus, we can't think clearly. It can also, depending on where it's located, like if you've got one in the kitchen, you can cut yourself, when you're prepping your
Sure.
coffee. So we don't want
Mhm.
danger to be around. So I came up with the five to simplify it and make everybody think, oh my gosh, I can do that. That's easy. I can attack feng shui and have fun with it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love your approach because it's the inner chi, not just like all the other books out there that are talking about moving furniture or, you're not your northwest corner is this and all of that,
No,
which is,
it's
yeah.
I tell people I'm working in a 5D. I'm up in the fifth dimension. I'm focusing on energy, and anyone can do this. The problem is that it's been beaten out of us not to feel, like have a stiff upper lip and power through and don't show emotion. And we need
Mhm.
to get rid of all of that. And you need to, like, when you have ants, flying ants, or if you have a
Yes.
weird situation, be able to stop and take a step back and really feel into that. What does this mean? What is this? This is
Mhm.
information. So
Mhm.
it's your emotions, energy and motion, that is going to tell you what this is. Spirit is constantly talking to us, but
If
our
we listen,
Wi-Fi
if
is
we
broken.
listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we listen, right? Like Wi-Fi is broken. Yes, I'm sorry I cut you off. Yeah, I understand. And I think our audience will get that too. They're really sharp. Here are a bunch of empaths and entrepreneurs who understand that there must be an energetic piece, even if they don't really get it yet. So I can totally see how much this is so important for all of us to really spend time with and really look at everything that you've got in your book here. What do you want people to end with? Like if they read your book, how do you want them to feel at the end?
Well, just that, the feel of it. I
Mhm.
think that we have shut down that part of us so much to the point that it's such a strong word, but it's been mutilated. Like we don't know how to feel anymore. And so we have this beautiful information, this direct line to God. And I call our chi like our Wi-Fi. It's this direct line to
Mm.
God. And our Wi-Fi is out. We're not paying attention. It's like we're in the middle of, nowhere, and we can't connect. And so um my hope is that they read the book. I've got a fantastic chapter in the back of the book. It's chapter 12, where I talk about the shift, about what's coming over the next 4 years, and how
Mm.
our world is going to look. And it's very positive. What we're stepping into we got to go through some junk, but what
Mhm.
we're coming out to is very, very positive. But I think to really get the fruit of it, or get the fruit from it, is to be able to slow down, prioritize, like get rid of a lot of the stuff that's no longer serving you, just really simplify.
Mm.
And really get back in touch with yourself. Like we have all this amazing information that the divine is constantly talking to us, and we're so shut down, and we're just so obliterated in that beta mind where we're frenetic, that we're missing the messages. And there's so much beauty around us if we can reconnect to that. There's so much amazing information, and you can really, like, the amount of joy that you can encounter and the magic that you can encounter every day when you step out of that busy bubble and what we've been led to believe is, in our contemporary world, what success is. Stepping out of that and coming over here to the mystical, magical, otherworldly, it's like, holy crap, why haven't I been over here longer? you know
You must
so
have had something that got you there besides the house, besides your journey of working on that very first house and the things you've learned from the other homes that you've been in. What have been some of the challenges that you've had in your life that's really sort of affected your soul and your brain power?
Well, the big one was in 2009, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. I
Okay.
was having a lot of issues at that time. And in meditation, I kept getting the message that the chains that bind you will be unearthed. And I knew.
Mm.
I kept getting visions of me standing on a cliff, and I was like, oh dear God. Like, I was trying to brace myself, but it's like knowing a car accident's about to happen, but you don't know when, where, how, So um
Mhm.
I call it in my book oscillating spirituality. So for like the first 7 or 8 years of my feng shui practice, I now realize it was very oscillating. I was oscillating to things that really fit into my belief systems and the labels that I wanted in my world. And then I get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and the doctor tells me to get my affairs in order. And I'm like
Wow.
32 years old.
Yeah. Oof.
And so it it was a powerful, powerful thing, because the woman from the bookstore, Marlene, had told me about a woman who was a medical intuitive in Fair Oaks, California. And she said, call her and see what she says. And the first thing that Linda asked me is, why did you manifest this? And I was like, what?
Whoa.
How
Wow.
dare you?
Yeah.
Which now, fast forward to, it's now been 13 years since that happened. And I'm like, like, it makes so much sense. Every year we glean more and more wisdom.
Yes. Wow.
uh, but yeah, that was a powerful time. She told me they had done a CT scan on me, and I had two massive footballs in my abdomen. I had huge, huge abs, like these tumors.
Mhm.
And I spoke with Linda, and she told me I really needed to get back to myself and cultivate, my empowerment. And this
Mhm.
is where the birth of me realizing the power of our own energy and how it's manifesting out here in our emotional subtle body. By the
Mhm.
time it hits us, it's like it's been out here forever.
Mhm.
So that's when I realized, wow, when you've got all this stuff that's out here and you're trying to attack your feng shui, it's not going to work, because you
Sure.
yourself are not energetically aligned.
Right.
It's a match.
Mhm.
So I just threw down in my guest bedroom. I mean, I turned it into my church. I did meditation, I did prayer. I was reading the Tao Te Ching. I was reading books on Buddhism. I just really got back to a very strong spiritual practice. And Joe Dispenza, he
Mhm.
talks about getting hit by a car, and he visualized his spine coming back together. And so
Mhm.
um, I just really visualized myself in a state where I was whole again, and that, I apologize, but I'm like, okay, I understand the woes of my ways, so to speak. So anyways, I did go in for surgery, and they ended up only removing my left ovary. I was supposed to go in for a full hysterectomy, and the
Mhm.
doctor said it's a miracle. And I was like, well, let me tell you what I did. Like, I changed everything. And I talk about this in the book. Like,
Good for
uh,
you.
my, I talked about my spirituality, my meditation, my visualization. I talked about food and praying over your food, having gratitude for
Yes.
what's going into your body.
Mhm.
Sleep, having plenty of sleep, because all of this healing that you do throughout the day has to marinate. You have to heal from the inside out. Um, mantra and yoga and all these beautiful things that I introduced into my life. And, my doctor was just like, oh, it's always good to pray. And I was like, oh no. Mm-mm. And I have a great quote in the book that the little boy says, oh, but I don't believe in magic. And the old man says, you will when you see her. So, that
Nice.
was, that was a huge turning point for me when I realized, holy shit, I'm powerful. I got a lot of power in me if I tap
Mhm.
into that and I have an understanding of it's that empowerment. I took command of my energy system and
Mhm.
I manifested what was important to me. And from a soul level, I went deep into my soul and got my priorities straight and I took command. And um and the thing is that I should say that just because you have spiritual matter in your life does not mean that your life is devoid of challenge. You're going to be constantly going up and down.
Mhm.
um, I talk about in the book, under the command chapter, I talk about Jane the real estate agent. Oh, Jane. uh, I had gotten through my cancer diagnosis, but then I went through a divorce. I lost my company. I filed for bankruptcy. My cat died. Like it was, oh God, it was so much. And I just was at my breaking point. And
Mhm.
then Jane appeared and she was taking my power. She was completely taking my power. And
Mhm.
I talk about this in the book. As women, we tend to be a martyr or a victim. So,
Mhm.
in order to really command our power and to step into that energy, so that we're not powerless, we got to get rid of these two things and we've got to get back in command of our lives. And so,
Mhm.
Jane, the real estate agent, taught me that. So, I know from the depths of my psyche, I manifested her to teach me that.
To teach you that. Wow, you've had quite a journey. It's interesting to me how many people, Amanda, who have come to the place of understanding energy the way you do on such a deep soulful level, often have had to have some kind of test or illness or something happen or challenge in their life, and then through that is how we discover. And what I'm hearing you say is so beautiful. And I want our audience just to kind of pay attention to this as they're listening. You allow other people in your field to be your teachers. You see
Mm,
it, you honor it, you feel it. That language isn't spoken out there in the real quote unquote, I don't want to call it normal because I don't think there is a normal, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
In that world. And so you allowed the houses to be your teachers. Jane showed up to be your teacher. You manifested that. So all that says is that you were in line and you were working on being more in line with
With
your soul and your inner
yeah,
chi. It's so
with your
beautiful.
soul.
So
And
completely
I talk
beautiful.
about that in the book that,
Mhm.
um, you know, we're all on this journey up the mountain to enlightenment, and some may visit you for a couple of hours and they're on the mountain with you for a couple of hours, or some may be making the trek up the mountain with you. But every
Mhm.
single one is a teacher to bring you back to self. It's self-realization and understanding who you are. And so I think now at this, I mean, I'm almost 50 now, and at this stage of the game, like I really, I just have such a bigger understanding now of life and like all the moving parts. And when things get really hard and really difficult, I'm like, okay, what am I learning?
And you're also demonstrating for us and so beautifully is that self-talk.
Yeah,
How you talk to yourself. Yes, you can talk to the snakes, like you said earlier, I can talk to the ants, and definitely have a conversation about what I want in my house or if they're, pests in your house. But you're really good at, and you've practiced this, having those conversations with yourself.
yeah. Well, and I think that
Mhm.
that's where we're headed. And I talk about this in the chapter, the shift is that we're gonna leave this idea of seeking, searching, and trying to find God. We're coming to a place where we're gonna know God and we're gonna see God within ourselves because we all are God. And
Mhm.
so I think that that's really what this ascension process that we're going through is all
Mhm.
about, and this shift in this energy is all about. And so I think that when you can get to this place and have an understanding and not be like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? and step
Mhm.
out of that and say, oh, what is this teaching me?
Mhm.
It changes everything.
It does. It's just reframing the question. Absolutely. It's a beautiful, beautiful question. And so how do you then, what tools do you use to keep your sort of body, mind, spirit healthy? I know it's the self-talk. You do a great job with that. What else does Amanda do to stay in balance and keep your inner chi?
Yeah, I think a big one for me is silence. I just love
Okay.
to, I'm always in a space of silence. Meditation,
Hmm.
being in nature is a huge one. Nature speaks to me constantly. Um,
Hmm.
and reading. I read a lot. I don't have a television. I don't watch news. I don't care what's going on with the Kardashians. I don't care what Fox News is saying. Um, I don't care what our president is doing or not doing. I don't care. Um, I really stay. It sounds a little Pollyanna, but I really create a reality that I want to be in and that I want to live in, and
Hmm.
it's really freaking magical.
That's
You know,
awesome. No, that's really
like
awesome.
uh, it's like I just started working for a new company. He's a gentleman that I've worked with off and on for years and years, and he had a position open, and he was just like, please, please, please come and just be in our presence. And I was like, okay.
Mm.
And I work from home, but like I go into the office occasionally, and he's like, man, I really wish you would come down here more often. I'm like, no. And he goes, I don't think you understand. Like, he's like, I don't know how to put it into words, but he's like, you radiate something. And
Mhm.
like when you're in a room, the energy shifts and everybody is so freaking happy. And he's like, when you call me, he's like, I don't look at the phone and go, ah. He's like, I'm literally fumbling to open the phone because I so desperately want to talk with you because I know I'm going to feel good. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's my world, right? That's, I think when you can, I don't think you need a tool for that. It's a choice. If meditation isn't for you, that's okay. If you don't like bugs and nature, that's okay. Figure out
Mhm.
what works for you and what you like doing. It's really about not defaulting to the negativity and what upsets you. What brings you joy and makes you happy and really lights you up. And um that's really what I seek. I really
Mhm.
try to do things that make me happy. And I didn't do that when I was younger. When I heard the Oprah show, no was a complete sentence, I was like, oh, it is? Like I used to say
Right.
yes to everything because I felt obligated to. And now, especially now that I'm older, I don't care. Like if somebody invites me to something, I'll be like, no, I ain't going to that. I don't want to. you know? Uh,
Right. You've got good boundaries. You're staying in your own personal chi, your energy
yeah. And
of
I
mhm.
just I really I do approach life very differently than most folks. I literally I'll be like writing with a pen and I'll be like, oh my God, thank you for this pen. This is amazing. It's like putting thoughts down on like it's so stupid, but it makes you laugh,
It's
right? Like,
gratitude. It's the attitude of gratitude. And I love your tip about helping people stay in joy. I often give that for like self-work. Do one thing that gives you joy every single day. Like if you
I
can't do,
feel like it's
yeah.
our culture has for some reason it's like a badge of honor to be I'm cranky, I've had a bad day, and oh, and I think it's very easy for people to default to the negative loop and what's going on and victimhood, and I'm unhappy and I don't like my life. And I think that if you can kind of flip that script and be happy for a pen or and one thing that I've really changed in my life is I do really silly, stupid, self-deprecating things because I know it gives joy to other people. And so like the other day I was getting my hair done and I had all the stupid foils in my hair. And so I took a picture and I was like, I had all this crazy stuff and I sent it to like my mom and a couple of my friends and they were cracking up. And like that brings me joy because I know it made them laugh. Like, it disrupts their day, whatever they were doing or experiencing, and brings a smile to their face. And so I that's a big thing. I've tried to stop working a lot of hours. I think the pandemic helped a lot with that for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But I make sure that I check in with people constantly, even if it's just a text. Like I did one this morning with a friend of mine in New York, and I just said, "Hey, I hope you're doing okay. Thinking of you." And she texted
Sure.
back and she was like, "Oh my God, do you know that of all the people in my life, you are the only one that constantly checks in on me?" And I was like, that brings her joy and that brings me joy.
Sure. Absolutely.
So we're
Absolutely.
sharing that chi and that experience. And I have found that, and this is probably why I got the manifest card, is that you get back what you put out. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, joy bombs to everyone because I want more joy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have done such a great job with this book. How can we get a hold of your book? Tell us how we can get a hold of the Feng Shui for the Soul.
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go to Amazon. Funny story, there's actually another book with the same name that was written 25 years ago. And so I wasn't gonna name the book this, and I kept getting it in meditation, and spirit was like, nope, it needs to be feng shui for the soul. And I was like, okay. So I talked to my attorney and she's like, no, just you can't trademark words, like it can be that. And I was like, okay. But if you type that in, the other book will come up as well. So you want to look for the one with the crazy colorful cover on there, but it's
And
on.
also the second part of it, right? So it's Feng Shui for the soul, but it's how to achieve more Om in your home.
Yeah,
So you want to
yeah.
look for that. You want to look for that title, and then you can have all these amazing tips right there at your fingertips as well that Amanda shared with us today. Amanda, if you were going to leave us with one feng shui tip for our audience, what would it be?
It's always cultivate your chi. It's a daily enterprise. Like it's not something that you do once and you're like, "Oh, I did that once." It's like brushing your teeth, taking a shower. It's like a daily ritual that you do to where you're constantly taking care of your energy, which is taking care of yourself. And the first couple of weeks that you're doing it, you may think, "Oh my God, this Amanda girl's nuts. This isn't working." But what's amazing is that when you start to elevate, you get tuned into those higher frequencies, those higher energies, and then your world starts to open up, and people who are negative in your life will start to fall out. Things
Mhm.
that don't serve you fall away, and like you start to rise to this higher level of energy, and magic starts to open up for you. And the only way that that's going to happen, the only way you're going to really attract that delicious joy on a constant basis is to cultivate your chi.
Love it.
And there's
Abs-
no hard and fast rule like to do that. You have to just, that's the fun part, is you get to discover what fluffs your chi, like what does it for you.
And it's so amazing all the great things and tips you've shared with us today. I can't wait for you all to get this book and check it out. So, Feng Shui for Your Soul: How to Achieve the More Om from Your Home. Beautiful, beautiful. You've done such a beautiful job in your life cultivating your chi. And I can see where when you walk into a room, Amanda, people are like, I want her to stay here. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. So thank you for your time today. And we're so excited to check out your book. And you can also do personal sessions with Amanda too. If you want her to look at your home, we were talking about this before we get on. Tell us about that. How can somebody really schedule with you? And what would you do for them? If they really wanted you to look at their personal chi, but also their home.
Yeah, so it's really easy. You can just go to my website, which is gatesinteriordesign.com, and you can, I do virtual appointments. You'll send me your floor plan. And I'm very intuitive. So I'll take a look at your floor plan and I'll say, this is happening, this is showing up, this is probably happening. And most people are like, holy cow, how did you know that? It's kind of like a psychic reading, but with your house. But it's really fun. And I think more than anything, to have something like that done is it's very validating, because you may be experiencing something that keeps coming up again and again. And you're like, oh my God, why does this keep happening? And it's
Mhm.
reflected in your home. So we can help heal that. And so I will look at, like, I'm working with a woman right now in England, and she's got celiac disease, Lyme's disease, kidney disease, like all of these things. And I'm like, honey bunny, you got sick chi. Like, we need to work on you. Like, we can't even get into your feng shui yet. Like, we got to work on you. So we
Mhm.
really look at, how to get your chi healthy and what's going to work for you, and clearing blocks, and kind of like what you were talking about, working in those
Mhm.
subtle energies, and
Mhm.
getting rid of the negative blocks and the kinks in our energy system, and moving those out, and so that we can get that chi flowing in a fluid manner. Then we can really start working on the environment. It's one and the same,
Of
and you
course,
can't
we are,
live without
yes,
the
we're
other.
whole, we're whole people. We are energetic beings, so it is one and the same. Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
you can
definitely
book those
doable.
online.
Okay. Oh, that's so awesome. Again, thank you for your time. You are so amazing. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, Amanda, and for the gift of being with you today.
Yeah, it's like a ray of sunshine.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have a party after this. You guys want to come?
Yeah.
Amanda and I are, yes. Awesome. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Amanda.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for letting me be here.